G'day folks, Andrew Lutzy here and John Cunningham with another edition of Find Out Friday. Today we've got a hot topic which is on everyone's lips as we're coming into the new market. We're looking at everything pre-launch to maximising your sale price when going to market.
Absolutely, and look, there's 5 key things for us, 5 takeouts we want to have from today that make people understand what goes on behind the scenes, because it's not just a matter of, we list a property, take photographs, and it launch to the web. There's so much more behind the scenes that go with that. So let's start with the first one, Andrew. We're looking at that whole preparation phase.
Oh, look, I think preparation's key. I mean, whether you're working in a sporting team, and you're going out to play a big game, or the same as selling real estate, it really are the things.
There's a game plan in play, isn't it?
It is. I mean, and executing that game plan is going to be critical so that you are setting up the property for its best chance to get the best price. And it all starts, as we know, with presentation. There's a difference between someone walking through a home and feeling emotionally connected to it than there is them thinking logically, especially when you're dealing with someone's biggest asset and they're constantly validating, is this really worth this much money?
Absolutely. And so when you look at the preparation that goes into getting the presentation right, there's a lot of things that you guys are doing in your team, particularly and across Cunninghams, that make sure that what's the number one objective here? Maximise the sale price.
That's right.
And so that emotional connection, making sure that the presentation is as best it can be. So you're investing in it, aren't you?
You are. And look, some of those simple quick wins, as we call it, for that investment strategy comes down to, buyers are absolutely hypercritical of the flooring and your paintwork. Yeah. 2 biggest areas you can have the best upsell on a property and in terms of its presentation value. And we'd use that term very carefully because there's a difference between the intrinsic value of the property, of what we're selling bricks and mortar, and what does that mean to the buyer, and then the presentation value, which is far more valuable in my mind as an agent to accelerate someone's emotion on the home.
And that's what our stylists say. They call it layers of love, don't they? Because that's the thing that actually makes the difference. Because, once you've found it, you want to fall in love with it. So that's the key component. And that, I suppose, then leads straight into the marketing, doesn't it? If you don't get those first elements in terms of the preparation and presentation right, your marketing's just going to miss the mark.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have the right marketing that dovetails the presentation, because the two need to be congruent, and that will then, the buyer will see the photos, they'll see the price, and they'll say, yes, John, Andrew, that measures up in my mind, and therefore they're going to put it on the shopping list. Because everything we do from presentation, which leads to marketing, is to make sure how are we going to get more buyers putting your property on their shopping list.
Absolutely, yep. And I suppose when we look at that, we can sort of start looking at the value of the property much clearer. Yes. Because we're actually now into a tangible part of the market where we've got a product we can go, hey, this is exactly where it's going. We've had examples where we've, say, invested $10,000 and we've looked at it and said, wow, this has actually added $100,000 value. Yeah. And that's regardless of market conditions. We know that's the case. So when we look at now the pricing strategy, in other words, of this pre-launching in the pricing, right, that's critical, isn't it?
I think the pricing is probably one of the hardest things to do, both from a buyer's perspective, but also from a seller when you are launching a property to market. And we'll talk a bit later about the launch activation program, because that's also comes back to this. But if you can't get the pricing right, then you really are setting the property up for some key hurdles. And when we talk about pricing of the property, there's the pitch guide launched into the marketplace, which obviously we want to make sure hits the nail on the head. Buyers see the pricing and they say, yes, that's in my budget. Yep. It's representative of fair market value. We don't want to pitch it too low, because if you pitch it too low, then obviously you're getting the wrong buyers in the wrong budget, and they're never going to have enough to afford what the owner's aspirations are. And conversely, if you pitch it too high and you've got too much of a presence in there, then no one's going to turn up to the front door. So it's really hard, but it is also equally probably one of the most important parts of the element to get that pricing absolutely right.
And again, another reason why when we look at what we do in that advisory space, the expertise that we come into play, the knowledge, the experience that we've had in terms of getting things priced right is so critical. Yeah. It's not just something you hope this is going to work. Yeah. This is actually a very strategic approach into that space, which then leads, I suppose, to the fact that when we get all these things right, and this is all happening before properties launch to market, folks, we then move into that buyer activation phase, which is it's just that communication to get people ready to come and view the property.
That's right. I think that's the fun part of any agent. If you speak to your agent as well, whether you are with Cunninghams or with another agency, you'll see the height of excitement. It's the best part of the campaign is actually when we can roll up the sleeves, get on the phone and start preparing the buyers in the right frame of mind that this property is coming to market. When we start drip feeding the different qualities of the property, start talking about the address while we're selling the street, the location, then the attributes of the actual home, and does that dovetail with what their criteria is as a buyer?
Absolutely, because it's a very bespoke thing, isn't it? Yeah. Every buyer has a specific set of needs.
Exactly.
And what we're trying to do in terms of our launch of the property to market is really tap into those, which is with our I suppose, sneak peek previews in terms of
That's
videos,
right. Yep.
giving those the little walkthroughs and almost like dangling a carrot to actually say, hey, check this out. And then moving into the full phase in terms of the web, connecting those buyers with the property through that, making sure that they have got that find element involved and they start to love what they're seeing. So if we get those bits right, we then can actually move into a space where we've launched the property highly effectively.
Yep.
We have our first open home, which becomes a bit of an event because we put so much energy and effort into getting people there.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, if you get that first part of the equation right, it makes the rest of it so much more effective.
It
and
does.
therefore, what are we after? Maximise sale price.
Yeah, I mean, our role clearly in this whole process is actually to find that hidden premium in the marketplace.
Absolutely.
So if we do all of these things right, the knock-on effect is massive for the owner.
Absolutely.
And I think you just don't want to have to get to the end of the campaign, look the owner in the eye and say, have we done everything we really can to maximise the sale price? And if you leave out one of those elements,
not going to work.
Not going to work.
So, folks, it all comes to what you do at the front end, in our view. Putting the energy and effort into making sure that a property is launched effectively requires a lot of pre-launch work, and that's what we do. We find that is get the start right, get the setup right, and everything else flows through to get in the absolute maximum result. So, thanks again for joining us today, and look forward to tuning in next week.
See you later.